So performance is very critical in every organization. And remember, the essence of having performance is to be able to measure your strengths and your weaknesses in the organization. And one of the reasons as to why we have performance management is because it is a requirement in different organizations. Because at the end of the day, you have to evaluate your employees. You have to know what they have done when the year started and when the year is ending. So that once you get what they've done, you can easily measure their performance. And this will also form the basis of maybe promotions later. So performance management is an ongoing process of communication between a supervisor and an employee that occurs throughout the year. So remember, when we talk about performance, we need to look at the engagement between a supervisor or a manager and the employees. And the main focus is to be able to accomplish some strategic objective of the organization. When we talk about strategic objective, what comes into our mind is that, remember, you need to be better than yesterday. And that is why we are talking about strategic objective. So that if you look at your performance, we are doing different things. That one is for last. As I said earlier, we are talking about three things this lesson. Number one, we are talking about performance management. Number two, we are talking about reward management. And we shall also look at separation of employees from the organization. So what I'm trying to tackle now is performance management. I've said performance management is an ongoing process that involves communication between a supervisor and the employee. And the focus is to ensure that you're able to achieve or accomplish a strategic objective within the organization. And that is why I was saying about strategic objective. Remember, the essence of having a strategic objective is to always be competitive in what you do. And that is why when you go to organizations, you'll find that one person is better than the other, or another person is better in a particular area compared to another in a different area. And that is why you must work as a team to ensure that you succeed. The communication process includes clarifying expectations, setting objectives, identifying goals, providing feedback, and reviewing results. So when you look at the communication process, remember you need to have a sender, you need to have a receiver who is going to receive that message. And the essence of having that process is to ensure that you set objectives that you need to achieve. Secondly, you also need to identify your goals. What do we need to have in terms of goals that will help us succeed? Then we're also looking at the issue of feedback. Remember, communication is a two-way process. If you communicate, you expect at the end of the day, you're going to get feedback. This feedback will go a long way to assist in ensuring that you succeed or you improve in your organization. And that is why when we look at the communication process, how many can remember that process? Yes. And you remember that process. Let us look at the process. So in the communication process, hope all of you can see clearly. So we have the sender, we have a medium, You have a receiver. Then you have feedback. So the sender will encode the message, encoding. So what is the encoding? Tuple, tuple.
Yes, Mwalimu.
Yes, so what do you understand by encoding message? Purity? What is purity? Yes, what we understand by encoding? Basically, encoding is giving meaning to a message. For example, once you have a message, maybe it is in your mind. So you need to make people understand what you want to communicate. And that calls for the process of encoding. So once you encode the message, you send the message to the receiver through what is called a medium. This medium can be either a phone, it can be through the email, it can be discussion. So once you have the medium, then the receiver will receive the message. And the work of the receiver is to decode the message, decoding the message. So once the receiver reads the message and is able to understand the message, then the receiver is going to give feedback. And feedback, remember, is very important. Even when you're sending a message to your boyfriend or your girlfriend or even your spouse, if you don't get feedback, you normally get angry because you think that this person is avoiding me. So feedback is very important for message to be complete. And feedback can either be a positive feedback or a negative feedback. But all in all, that is feedback. Then, what are the basic principles of effective performance management? So what do we need to have in order for performance management to be successful? One of the things that we need to look at is the principle of transparency. So transparency, remember, involves giving the correct information in a clear way so that people will be able to understand what you mean by what you need to measure. So you need to be very clear from the word go, and this will help you to ensure that at the end of the day, you are able to improve your performance. So you need to communicate what is needed in a more transparent way, and this will go a long way to assist you succeed. Then another principle is employee development and empowerment. In order to increase performance, you need to ensure that you develop your employees. How can you develop your employees? You can develop your employees by ensuring that they engage or they participate in some of these functions within the organization. And the other thing is to empower your employees. How then do you empower your employees? Is to be able to recognize them, to be able to build their capacity by giving them an opportunity so that at the end of the day, you can easily merit what they do. The notes are already there. Did you check? I think these notes are on the platform. I shared a long time ago. Can still get them. I just go and confirm and you'll see them. So the other principle that is very important is values. In order for performance to be performance, you need to have values that you've set. Value is a fair treatment and ensures satisfaction of all stakeholders. In every organization that you go, you'll normally have values. For example, they normally have their core values. And these values help them to ensure that they have a foundation of their behavior or the basis on how they behave in different organizations. For example, if you go to a certain organization, you'll find that their value is trust, or maybe their value is customer service. Then it means once you go to that organization, then you can embrace those values. And during appraisal, basically what happens is that they look at the values and they can measure your performance based on how much you followed those values within the organization. Then another thing about performance management is what is called favorable work environment. The environment in which you operate must be an environment that is conducive so that you can realize your potential, you can realize your ability as an employee of that organization. So it is always important that you ensure that the work environment is a conducive environment. And this goes a long way to assist in maximizing the performance management. The other thing also about favorable work environment, you need to look at the organization mission and the vision and the values. Make sure that all employees know about the vision, they know about the mission and things like that. So once you know the vision, you can easily work towards ensuring that you perform better. And during evaluation, it becomes easier for you to be able to measure the performance. Then another thing is about having a framework that will help you to perform better. So a framework is like a roadmap. So once you have a framework, it means that you have a roadmap that you can use, a roadmap that you can use to succeed or to evaluate performance, evaluation of performance. The other thing that you need to look at, remember, is the external environment and how it influences your performance. Remember, you are operating in an environment that can be influenced by what is happening. Like currently, when you see the external environment, you realize that we have a lot of political instability. This political instability is affecting your performance. Some people are supposed to report to work on Monday. Instability. So some people are supposed to report to work on Monday, but because of the maandamano, they were not able to report to work. Imagine if you are being measured on issues to do with being present at work, and on Monday you never went to work. So it means during the performance review, it will become an issue because they'll ask you a question: why did you not come to? And that is why sometimes we need to analyze some of these environments and how they affect the performance of employee. Things to do with ICT. ICT. Let's assume that the organization is coming up with a new system. As an employee, you need to at least have an idea of what is happening in terms of that technology. Some organizations nowadays have come up with this artificial intelligence, AI, as a way of trying to build employees. For example, there's this common AI that organizations are using. It is called Copilot. How many have heard of it? Copilot. Na wangapi wametumia? Have you ever interacted with the Copilot? Ken? And do you know how it works? Shabir? Shabir, if you can hear me, are you in this class? So ICT is a critical. So it is an external environment, technology. The only thing you can do is to adapt to technology as a way of improving your performance. And nowadays, organizations are really investing in trying to establish how they can integrate external environment with what is happening within organization as a way of looking at their adaptability. Another critical aspect of external environment is the issue of sustainability. And this is a very common term that is used in organizations, sustainability. So nowadays, companies are looking at how are they going to improve in terms of looking at the issue of sustainability. And when we talk about sustainability, we are talking about three critical aspects of sustainability. For example, we are looking at the economic sustainability. Economic. This is how a company will survive in terms of coming up with new revenues to run their business, so that when they look at the future, they understand that the future is not certain. Nobody knows about tomorrow. So they have to prepare starting from now on how they are going to increase their revenue. And that is why most companies have decided to diversify their business, so that in the event something like Corona happens, it's not going to affect them in any way. Then another aspect that is very important about sustainability, we have to talk about the social sustainability. Social. There has been a focus on employees most of the time. And that is why nowadays organizations are really taking care of their employees, because they've realized that the issue of mental health is affecting most of the employees. Therefore, they have been able to adapt the issue of sustainability in their employees. And that is why they have introduced things like mental health awareness, things like work-life balance, things like maybe uh, providing advice. So you will find that most of the time they still have a psychologist who can come and try to listen to people and try to give advice, because they have realized the employees are going through a lot. Then the last one is the issue of environmental sustainability, environment. So basically, we are looking at the environment, and you have to come up with products that are not going to affect the environment in any way. Therefore, it means in order for organizations to survive in terms of performance, they need to look at the external environment, and sustainability is one of them. Any question? Any question? Joroge? Jean Joroge? Ako kwa class?
Yes, no question.
Okay. Nakuna nakuminja.
I don't have a question.
Okay. Beatrice.
So, Mwalimu, I do have a question.
Okay. So let us look at the characteristics of effective performance management. So what are the characteristics? In order to succeed in performance management, what do you need to have? What are some of the characteristics? The first one is that organizational goals should be clear. From the word go, you must have goals that are clear to the management and clear to the employees, so that you have to have a matrix that you're going to use to ensure that performance measurement is fair enough. So once you have the clear objectives, then it means that you know exactly where you are coming from and where you are going to in terms of management. Another thing that we need to look at is the issue of evaluation. Remember, when we talk about performance, we are talking about measure. You need to measure. What are you measuring? You're measuring two aspects. Number one, you're measuring the actual performance, and you're also measuring the expected performance. So basically, you need to look at the variance in the two, where there's a difference. Maybe there's the expectation that you need employees to have, but there's the actual behavior of employees. So you need to come up with a better way of evaluating. And that is why you need to measure some parameters that will standardize how you measure the performance of your employees, so that to avoid cases of being unfair, where some employees feel that this process is not. Then we also need to have the issue of cooperation, but not control. So people need to cooperate. How do they cooperate? By ensuring that they support that, ensuring that they are part and parcel of performance management. And this can only be done when managers try to nurture this so that they realize their real potential. This will go a long way to avoid cases of feeling that they are controlling you, which is very, very bad. Then we also have the issue of self-management team. Self-management team. So you need to come up with teams or individuals with common or shared values. This will go a long way to ensure that you can easily measure their performance based on the team spirit that they have. So self-management teams need to encourage the individual and the teams for self-management of their performance. So as an individual, you need to push yourself to ensure that you perform to the best of your ability. How many of you go to work and they are not motivated to work or even to perform? Their work is to go take tea and go back home. So you need to have the self-drive of ensuring that you manage your performance, so that in the event they want to evaluate your performance, they can easily get what you scored in terms of appraisal at the end of the day. Then another thing or another characteristic is leadership development. Leadership development. So the managers need to identify employees who have leadership potential. Remember, the work of a manager is to nurture. You need to nurture talent. You need to nurture talent. You can identify an employee, the potential of that employee. And once you identify that talent, you need to nurture that talent so that employees will realize their full potential. And that is why last week we talked about mentoring and coaching. And we said mentoring goes beyond the actual coaching. But coaching is a structured way of doing things. Then another thing that is very important is the system of feedback. Always have an open door policy where employees can be able to give feedback on the issues about performance, so that once they get the feedback, it will help them to improve on areas that they feel they need to improve. So the system of feedback is very important. And that is why we talked about the communication process. And remember, we also mentioned the issue of feedback. So what is the performance management cycle? Performance management cycle. So what is your understanding about a cycle? What is a cycle according to your own understanding? We have Suarez and yes. What is a cycle? Yes, Haida. What is a cycle? When we talk about performance cycle, what is a cycle? Haida.
A chain.
A cycle is like a chain. Yes, Veronica.
A pattern.
It's like a pattern that you have to follow. So remember, even in performance management, there's a cycle that you have to follow to ensure that it is successful at the end of the day. So the cycle starts with planning. You must plan on how you are going to look at the performance of your employees. And planning, remember, accounts for at least 70% of success. That means if you plan well, there's a possibility that you are going to succeed in performance management. But failure to plan, it means that you are planning to fail. Then the second step is normally referred to as check-ins. So once you plan, you can organize a framework that will help you to ensure that you monitor what the employees are doing. So basically, you can have different check-ins where you review your employees, what they are doing, and this will go a long way to tick the boxes so that you understand what exactly are they doing. This also calls for what is called review. So at the end of the month or at the end of the year, depending on how you've structured your performance management, you can easily review. Review is all about going back to check whether the employees really performed depending on your plan. And that is why every year you must review your performance metrics based on the feedback that you get. So that if this year the focus was to increase employee in terms of maybe training, next year you can have a different goal. And this goal will help you to come up with another plan of measuring their performance. Maybe your focus was to ensure that every employee that comes into the organization is going to get some level of training in terms of customer service. So it means that at the end of the day, you need to design a customer service training for all the employees so that during your performance review, you can easily check whether all employees were able to undergo that training. If they were able to go to that training, then it means that your plan succeeded from the word go. However, you can also get feedback on different areas that employees feel that they need also to improve, so that in your next performance management organization, you can come up with some of those ideas that you got from your employees. So you can read that. The next thing we are going to look at today is the issue of reward management. Most of the time you find that the organization has come up with an activity of rewarding the best employees. Why do they do that? It is because they want to motivate the employees to perform better. So reward management strategies and practices of an organization will contribute to what is called improvement of organizational performance. Imagine if this year you are rewarding a certain gift by your employer. It means that at the end of the day, next year you are going to improve your performance because you will work extra hard to ensure that you still win the same reward you got this year. So it leads to improvement of organizational performance by developing and operating reward systems which help to attract, retain, and engage people upon which the business relies. So the essence of having reward management is to be able to attract employees to perform better. It will also help to retain employees so that if you look at the reward management system, you feel that you really need to work for that organization and to ensure that they continue succeeding at the end of the day. Then the other thing is about engaging the people. So if you come up with a reward management system, then it means more employees will be engaged, and this will go a long way to increase their performance. Some organizations will come up with reward systems that will give their employees bonuses. So at the end of the day, you find that you have been given a bonus of even more than your salary. So imagine if you get a bonus of more than 100,000 or even 200,000, it means that at the end of the day, you'll always want to work extra and perform better than last year. Companies like Safaricom are really doing a good job because they are always giving their employees the best in terms of reward, in terms of recognition, and many other aspects in the organization. So reward management is concerned with strategies, policies, and processes required to ensure that the value of people and the contribution they make to achieving organizational, departmental, and team goals is recognized and rewarded. So that it means at the end of the day, in order to come up with the reward management, you need to have a strategy that is going to help you be competitive. You need also to come up with a policy. And these policies, these are laws that you develop within your organization to be able to guide you during reward management. So that at the end of the day, you realize that this reward management is not discriminatory in any way, or the reward system is more objective. Then we also need to come up with processes so that when they are coming up with the reward system, it needs to be a transparent process that employees really say it was fair. You really were recognized fair and square. So you need to have a process that will help you. And this process, therefore, is going to help you to achieve departmental goals, to achieve the team goals, and also enhance recognition within the organization. Then what is the aim of reward management? Why do we need to have reward management in organizations? Number one is that if you have a good reward management system, then it is going to assist in supporting the achievement of the business goals through high performance. How is it going to ensure high performance? Yes, we have an And how will it ensure that you're able to achieve your goals? Reward management. Naeku niwe naongelesha. Yes? You can pass to another person. We are talking about reward management.
Yes.
And we are saying that the aim of reward management is to ensure that they support the achievement of business goals. How will it ensure that?
When you apply reward management, whereby the employee feels appreciated, it will increase their productivity because they will work an extra mile to ensure they achieve, so that in future they can also be rewarded.
Yeah, the moment you recognize somebody, or they understand that there is a system that the organization is going to reward, even bonuses to all employees, then it means they will always work hard to ensure that they achieve that goal.
They
or
feel
goals.
motivated.
Therefore, it will increase their motivation, which will in turn increase or achieve their goal as a business. The second aim of reward management is to reward people according to their value they create. Reward people according to the value they create. How do people add value to the organization? Add value, purity. Yes. Shout so that they can hear you. I know in your organizations, you normally have values. What are some of the values that you carry along in your organization? For example, my organization, we have what is called customer service. Let me start by customer service and satisfaction. So this is a value that each employee must have, customer service. And you must be trained to serve customers. Remember, customers are the core stakeholders. If they don't come to your premise, it means that tomorrow you'll not have a reason to wake up, because you'll not have a customer to serve. So customer service is a value that you have to have as employees. Which other value can you relate with the organization? Yes, Veronica. Which are some of the values that guide you, your day-to-day operations?
Care.
Yes? I didn't hear you.
I've said care.
Care in terms of care.
It also touches on customer service. But,
Customer care. Customer care.
Yes.
Any other apart from care?
Trust.
Okay. Trust on customers or employees?
Both.
Do you have trust? There's a common one called accountability. Accountability. Someone must be answerable. Accountability. Accountability. This is a very common value that you must have as an employee. You must be accountable. You must be answerable. And that is why the issue of passwords came. So that in the event you make a mistake in the system, they are able to track, and you must be answerable. Transparency is another one. The issue of transparency. Integrity is another value that you must have. Then another aim of reward management is reward people according to what the organization values. Remember, we have values in terms of people and values in terms of organization. So what you've been talking about is the organization values. So you as a person, you also have your values. What guides you every day? What guides you as your personal value? Let me tell you mine. I'm always unique in what I do. So that is my personal value. Uniqueness in all aspects. Yes, what is yours? Empathy. So Anne is empathetic. Beatrice, what is your personal value? Yes, Beatrice. Ama hauna? Lucy. Kande, Lucy Kande. What is your value? One value that you have.
Integrity.
Integrity. Integrity. But I doubt on integrity, particularly when you are alone, pata pesa imeangushwa mahali, naokota, na hautapeana. Anyway, that is your personal value. Helen, do you have any? Helen?
A team player.
Helen is a team player. Normally work better when you are having teams. Another aim of reward management is to align reward practices with employees' needs. So you need to align the practices with what employees feel is critical for them, or it is a priority for them. So reward management will help in ensuring that you're able to align the needs of employees with what is happening in the organization. The other thing is about helping to attract and retain high quality people the organization needs. Imagine if you reward employees every year. Who wants to leave that organization? You can't, because you have the sense of belonging that at the end of this year, I'm going to get something as a bonus, as a way of recognizing my effort every year. At the end of every year, some organizations will normally give their employees shopping vouchers. I know most organizations do that. So that is one way of ensuring that they maintain you there so that you don't leave that organization. Ken is saying he's committed. Committed in what sense? Like right now, you are committed to this class. Is that what you mean, Ken? Then the other one is help to attract and retain high quality people the organization needs. That one we've talked about. Then win the engagement of people. Anytime you reward people, it means that you are winning them over so that they can believe in you, they will work hard and ensure that they succeed. For example, what happened in Equity last was it frustrations of management because they realized that most employees were stealing from customers? Was that out of frustration, or employees felt that they were not recognized? And that is why they decided to pay themselves. So sometimes it is important to always recognize your employees, even by thanking them by word of mouth. It will go a long way to help motivate them. What are the principles of reward management? What are the principles of reward management. So reward guiding principles are concerned with matters such as operating the reward system with a lot of fairness, acting in a way that is equitable, transparent, and also looking at all stakeholders and ensuring that they are engaged in the issues to do with the reward system. Always involve everyone, be it the directors, be it the customers, be it the employees, the suppliers. Anytime you bring them on board and you reward them, then it feels good and they'll be able to support your business. And that is why I always talk about suppliers and customers. Make sure that they become your partners rather than the people that just support you. Ensure that you bring them on board and make them your partners. Remember, somebody who is a partner will feel the need to support you more and become better. Then developing reward policies and practices that support the achievement of business goals. Make sure you come up with policies that will support the achievement of business goals. Policies that are in line with what you do. Policies that are in line with your vision as an organization. This will go a long way to help you succeed in reward management. Rewarding people according to their contribution. So you need to act in a fair way so that you give people rewards according to what they have contributed in the organization, the value that they bring to that organization. Let it be out of merit rather than out of emotions. Don't act emotionally because you want to reward your friends. So always recognize people who have contributed to the success of that organization. This will go a long way, even to retain them, to avoid cases of high turnover of employees in that organization. You also need to recognize the value of everyone who is making an effective contribution, not just exceptional performance. You know, we have some people who ride on others. They'll always hide and they take advantage and they are recognized. They are always visible. They talk loudly, but they don't work. So you need to look at the other people who are behind the scenes, but they are really working so hard. So make sure you recognize everyone who is working hard. Create an attractive employee value proposition, providing reward which attracts and retains people and enlists their engagement. So you need to create a system that will help employees to be valuable in that organization, to attract and retain people. Sometimes the only way you can retain people in your organization is by giving them the best in terms of recognizing them. We have some people who have worked in a particular firm for even more than 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. One of the reasons as to why this happens is because of the reward that they have over the years. Then help to develop a high performance culture. Culture, remember, is a pattern of behavior that has been there for quite some time. So you need to maintain a culture that is of high performance. This will automatically lead to many people who are coming into the organization to follow that culture. This will go a long way to increase the reward management process so that each and every employee who performs better will be rewarded by the organization. Maintain a competitive rate of pay. Ensure you pay your employees. Don't pay your employees peanuts. Make sure you pay them a good rate so that they can always have a reason to come to work. Siwalipe mshahara yenye inasema view once. Only view on the first week of the month. After that, you go back to the cycle. It's very possible. Then Maintain equitable rates of pay. So you also need to pay your employees some allowances. This will go a long way to help them. Maybe you can pay house allowance, you can pay transport allowance, and other forms of allowances that you feel is critical for your employees, particularly those employees who are working in a critical area in operations, and it is really demanding. You need to look at them. Overtime is also an allowance. You also need to pay them. You can also give them other forms of allowances, maybe a car allowance if they have a car, things like that. This will go along with motivate your employees so that they can always have a reason to perform more and more. Another thing is allowing a reasonable degree of flexibility in operation of reward process and in the choice of benefits by employees. Make sure that you have some level of flexibility in how you operate. And this will go a long way even to improve the reward process in the sense that employees will feel that they benefit from the organization. You can also come up with flexi hours where you can always give employees some leeway to work from home once in a while as a way of motivating them. This is also a form of reward. Imagine you are in the comfort of your bed, but you're still working. So that is some level of reward. Then develop more responsibility for rewarding decisions line managers. So always ensure that you empower your line managers so that they can recognize people who are performing extremely better and reward them on the spot. You don't need again to escalate the issue to another manager. So as a line manager, you have the power to ensure that you recognize your employees and you reward them so that in your monthly meetings, make sure that you recognize the worker of the month, the best performer that month. So it will help others to work extra hard so that they can get the recognition at the end of the day. Then devolving more responsibility or to the line manager, that one we've talked about. The other thing we need to look at today is the issue of total reward. Total reward. What do we mean when we talk about total reward? Total reward thinking on the part of the manager should involve giving proper consideration to forms of rewards which do not constitute pay, including elements which neither transactional, tangible, nor even financial in nature. So sometimes it's not all about money. You have other forms of reward that you can give your employees that will go a long way to motivate them so that they become better. So as line managers, you need to ensure that you look at the areas that you feel are critical for your employees that will help them recognize their abilities so that they can work extra hard. So this includes opportunity to develop both career-wise and more generally as a human being. The social life which is associated with working. So you also need to look at how are we going to ensure that these employees build their career. Maybe if you got employed as a Form 4 leaver, how then are you going to develop your skills so that in future you'll also go to a university and get the knowledge that will go a long way to assist you grow your career path. You have some people who entered a certain organization as maybe messengers with a Form 4 certificate. But when you look at them today, they have really grown. An example that you know in the Kenyan context. Any example? Yes, you know of anybody? You don't read books, or you only read the notes. Is this guy who was called, yes? Oh, Ruto. Oh, Ruto from a chicken seller to a billionaire. Another example, Njenga Karume, the charcoal seller. Remember Njenga Karume? Then there was this guy from Daystar, was a watchman some years ago. But nowadays he's a doctor of philosophy and a lecturer. If you can remember that story. So it doesn't matter where you start from. What matters is the end. Yes?
Simon Kabu of Bonfire Ventures.
Okay, that is another example. Simon Kabu. No, Simon Kabu was a Makanga, yeah? But nowadays he's a CEO of Bonfire Ventures. So those are some of the issues that you need to look at as employees or employer. You need also to develop your employees in terms of career. You need to identify their areas of strength so that you can support them. And that is why some companies normally give their employees scholarships so that they can go study abroad. But the problem with employees, once they get those opportunities, they will always grow wings because they feel there's nothing that the employer can tell them because they now have the papers, which is a very bad way of paying back or repaying. We have other areas like the medical field, and particularly these courses, the STEM courses, STEM, science and technology, and mathematics. I have some few friends of mine who did the STEM courses. And every time you hear that they have been given some scholarships by their organizations so that they can explore and bring knowledge into the field of science. But in social science, I don't think that is the practice. Some of us who are doing business courses, do your organization support you? Or they feel that you are going to be a threat to the organization? Yes, and it seems you are getting a hard time. Are they supporting you? Wanasikia huku wanasikia ni kama watapasuka. Sure, I don't think so. Then work-life balance. This is a very common phenomenon in organizations where they want to create a balance so that you don't work. From January to December, you are working. You don't even want to go on leave. And this is very common, even for generation, after generation millennials. Your generation ingine ilikuwa inaitwaje? Kuna millennials ndio. Sasa before millennials ni gani?
Gen X.
Gen X. Kuna ile ya kina Ruto hii. Ya kina Ruto.
Boomers.
Hawa boomers. Unapata mtu anafanya kazi miaka yote hataki kwenda leave. Ati kazi itaharibika. Ushaisikia kitu kama hiyo? Purity. Ati kazi itaharibika sieti leave. So that is a very bad way of looking at it. But because of technology and things like advancement in education, nowadays companies are really focusing on how they are going to create work-life balance so that you are always encouraged to go on leave, to go on holiday. Leave your laptop at work. Don't go with your laptop at home. It's like you're transferring work at home. So they always encourage people to at least get a life after work. Go and enjoy yourself. The other thing that is also very important is the mental awareness. Mental awareness. Some organizations normally organize a mental awareness day so that employees can at least go and talk to somebody. It's always important to talk to somebody. You have somebody that you talk to. At a more advanced level. Yeah? You have a mentor. Wachana na mentor. Mtu mwingine tu wambia manze kimeumana. Mambo ni ngumu. Nakoga mtu namwambia leo kimeumana. So it's always important to have somebody who you can talk to. And I know nowadays life is very difficult. And that is why when you walk in town, you realize that people are talking to each other. You're talking to yourself, my friend, because life is becoming difficult. Another thing that the organization is doing that is not basically on issues to do with finances or bonuses, the pension plan. Pension. This is an initiative that they realize that employees, when they retire, they don't have money. They take a short time, then they die because they don't have money to spend. You've been used to waking up in the morning, going to work. Now you're not going to work. You didn't even save for your retirement. Don't even have a skill that will help you after retirement. So what happens? You relocate to shags. Then eventually we hear other stories that so and so is no longer with us because of the issue of pension. And that is why we have the P&P, permanent and pensionable. So the employee and the employer must coordinate so that the employer is going to match your pension. If they are giving you 20,000, the employer also needs to match 20,000 so that you get at least 40,000 every month towards your pension. So at the end of 65 years, at least you have something. Another thing is the advice that they give you. And nowadays I hear they're talking about financial management, things like that. They also give you some training on how you are going to manage your finances. The main focus is to ensure that they take care of your needs. So that when you retire, you have a home and you have a business to go to. So we'll look at that. And I know you will relate with that. Any question? So we have the elements of payment. You have the basic rate. So this is the amount that they give you or the amount that you earn as basic at the end of the month. Then we have the benefits. These are the extras that you get, maybe additional to what they pay you as the allowances. Then we also have what is called the premium, where employees work at inconvenient times. They can also be given some premium. Maybe you are working on shifts and things like that. So the organization can decide that they are going to pay you some premium as a way of motivating you so that you can come on shifts. There is the overtime. You can also pay your employees overtime so that in the event you work any extra hours, you can always get some overtime. And there's a way they calculate the overtime so that once you finish your 8 to 5 work, you can get some extra shillings or coins on top. Then you also have what is called the plusage. Sometimes the basic has an additional to recognize an aspect of working condition or employees' capability. Sometimes you can get a plus because they've realized you are really doing an extra job. For example, if you come up with a solution in your place of work, maybe you are experiencing some problems that were affecting all the employees, then you come up with something that is unique about that. They can add something small on your basic pay. Or maybe if you get some extra responsibilities, maybe you act on behalf of somebody else, they can always add something to you as a plusage. Then we also have what is called an incentive. Incentives are elements of payment linked to the working performance of an individual or a group, usually as a result of prior arrangement. So sometimes you can get an incentive or something that they add to your salary. And this is very common, particularly when you're in sales and marketing, because sometimes you get a sales commission. This will go a long way to motivate you to get more customers. Very important. Then we have the bonus, a different type of variable payment in a gratuitous payment by the employer that is not directly earned by the employee, called a bonus. For example, let me use an example. Last year, Equity reported a profit of how many billion? More than 20 billion. Still, I'm not sure of the figure. So Equity can decide that they are going to give their employees some bonuses based on their level. So that if you are in management, there's a certain amount you can get. Maybe they can match your 1 month salary. So that if you are paid 150,000 or even 200, they add another 200 on top. So that month you get a salary of 400,000. Or sometimes you can get a Christmas bonus where they've said that they're going to give you, yes? Yeah, they're going to give you maybe vouchers, shopping vouchers, a gift card of a certain amount of money as a bonus, so that you just walk into a supermarket using the gift card and do shopping. So that is another example of a bonus. And this is very common, particularly at the end of every year, where organizations want to pay their employees. We also have what is called the 13th check. Check. This is very common, where at the end of the year, they pay you 2 salaries. We experience here once in a while when the organization is doing good. Your question mnaweza review. Any question? Any question? Purity? So the other thing we need to look at today is how do you set the base pay? How do you set the base pay or the basic payment? We have different factors that are normally considered by employees or employers when they are setting the base pay. For example, if today you start a business and you have employed 10 people, what is the parameter that you're going to use when paying those employees? So there is always a limit on how much any employer can afford to pay if it is to remain competitive in the industry. So you don't just pay. There's a way they came up with what you're being paid right now in your organization. Maybe because of the responsibilities that you have, or maybe because of the risk of your job, or maybe because of other reasons that are critical to the pay. What are some of those reasons that the organization will decide to pay employer A this amount of money and to pay another employee this amount of money? So we have different mechanisms or principles that they can use that will help in determining the basic pay. Number one is the external market comparisons. This is where they look at other players in the industry. How are they paying their employees? For example, if you are a human resource in organization X, human resource manager in organization X, how much are you paid in that organization? So normally the organization will do an analysis to understand what is the going rate of a human resource manager in the market, so that when they are coming up with the payment in organization Y, then they have a base on how much they are going to charge. And that is why every year they normally review based on the market comparison. And that is why last year maybe you are paid a certain amount of money. After 3 to 4 years, then they review. They realize that the other organization has shifted. Therefore, they need also to shift. Otherwise, the employees are going to leave that organization to look for greener pastures. Then we have the internal labor market mechanisms. Internal labor market mechanisms. This is where we look at the internal labor market mechanisms. For example, what does the labor market talk about in terms of employment, in terms of pay? So you need to look at the internal differentiations in terms of what is happening internally and what is happening outside there. So that when you are doing your comparison, it is also very important also to look at the qualifications about the job. For example, for you to become a human resource manager, what are some of the qualifications that you need to have? You need to have 15 years experience. Do you need to have a qualification in CHRP? Or do you need to have a master's degree? Do you need to have a management position, maybe 5 years? You know those requirements, how they are normally set. 15 years experience. Sometimes these people are unfair. Yeah. And you are just beginning your career. But anyway, you can customize your CV. I mean, you've been working for the last 15 years. Then you go to an interview, you're told, show us a mouse. You don't understand what is a mouse. Start looking for a mouse under the table. Yeah, you remember that story? Then another thing that is very common is job evaluation. Job evaluation. Most of the time, it's a very common practice in organizations where they can re-evaluate you. They can do a job evaluation. And the main focus is to look at what you do currently and what you are expected. And because of the market dynamics, or maybe because of the competition and things like that, what you used to do 5 years ago is totally different with what you are doing currently. And nowadays, because of systems and things like that, you need somebody who is technically aware. So they can do a job evaluation to establish whether there's a difference or whether they can improve on some issues. Therefore, they can also review the base pay based on their evaluation of what you do. They can either upgrade or downgrade that position based on the evaluation that they have done. Another thing that is very common is collective bargaining. This is very common, particularly for employees who are under union, the unionizable employees. They always feel happy when they hear the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement. After 5 years, they are going to review. And if the management does not take care of their needs, they will always go on the streets to strike. Like the doctors, they are always on the streets. The teachers, they are always on the streets. But teachers need to be paid a lot of money, sindio? Sana sana hawa primary na huko chini. Imagine alikutoa ujinga. Huku hata unajua kuongea. Amefanya mpaka umenini. So you need to look at the collective bargaining. Then you need to do your reviews on the base pay. Any question? Frida? Frida? Yes, Frida. Esther?
Yes.
Any question?
No.
Okay. There's a comment here. Let us see. What is the difference between job evaluation and job analysis? What is the difference? Yes, Beatrice. Rosemary is asking, what is the difference between evaluation and analysis? Is there any difference? Yes, Ken? Yes? Any idea? Evaluation, according to me, that is my argument. When we talk about job evaluation, the main focus is the end goal is to look at the performance. Yes? Yeah, basically, evaluation is all about trying to measure something at the end of the day. But analysis is more detailed because you can analyze different aspects of the job. You can look at different aspects when you are analyzing a particular job. But when you are evaluating, it means that the outcome is to measure whether the job is really effective or not. Rosemary, hope I've answered you.
Yes, you have. Thank you.
Okay. Ida is in a noisy place. Maria, do you have a question? Maria?
No question, Mwalimu.
Okay, let us look at separation of employees from the organization. When we talk about separation of employees, we are looking at the negative aspect of recruitment. So that if you talk about separation, what can make an employee to be separated from the organization? We have different factors that might lead to that. For example, if today you decide to fight your fellow colleague in your job, that will lead to separation because that is an indiscipline case. What if you drink at work, or you come to work when you are drunk? What happens? Are you sure? When you are drunk, maybe you are being affected by some mental issues.
Disciplinary
Those who are
issues.
practicing in HR, what happens when you come to work every day? You are coming to work and you are drunk. Sometimes,
The disciplinary process will start.
yeah, sometimes you might be drinking because of stress. So you want to remove stress. Sometimes you are not drinking, but all of a sudden you start drinking. Maybe your wife or your husband is bringing issues. He wants to sell land that you struggle to buy. So you end up falling into depression. You start drinking. Or every day you are being beaten at home, and don't want to tell your colleagues because they will laugh at you. Then you start drinking. So sometimes they always look at the situation. So they cannot just dismiss you like that. They will take you to maybe counseling. Maybe they will take you to a rehab in order to correct that. So it may be in the form of resignation. Today you might resign from your job. It means that you'll be separated from organization, where you decide that I'm going to leave this job, whether they like it or not. Maybe because of the environment, which is very toxic, decide I'm going to resign. But how many of you can do that? Nakumbuka venye umeteseka hii Nairobi na umepata kazi, unasema hapana, si ndio? Then or God will provide. And you've been asking for God, hey, God, give me this job. Then all of a sudden, God gives you the job. But when you are praying for the job, you never prayed for a good working environment. You get the job, but the environment is very toxic. Decide to resign. Therefore, you have separated from that organization. Another one is dismissal, where they dismiss you, summary dismissal. This is because of some issues. What can lead to summary dismissal? Yes, tuulize watu hapa ndani. Kuna watu wajaongea kwa hii class leo. Acha tuone. Angelina.
Maybe integrity issues.
Yes. Summary dismissal. What can lead to summary dismissal? Cynthia.
Related issues.
Integrity related issue. So ukisema integrity related issues, umefungia wengine. Like which one?
Theft.
When you still at work, you will be dismissed. You will be dismissed. Another one that is very common is sexual harassment, where you want to take advantage of someone else because of your position. Another one that is very common is fighting at work. Very common. Another issue that might lead to summary dismissal is corruption, where you are taking money from your customers for facilitation. This is very common in government offices. Then suspension. You can be suspended because of some issues that were not ethical. So they might end up suspending you. Then we have retrenchment, where they might decide to retrench you because maybe the business is not doing well, or because the organization has decided to shift from what is happening currently at SHA. Wapo wanajua SHA Shishu. So they are shifting from NHIF to SHA. So we have a lot of retrenchment cases, layoffs, because they need a certain number of employees who are going to transition to that organization. So each organization must have a comprehensive separation policy and procedure to treat departing employees with a lot of equity and also ensure smooth transition for them. So you don't just wake up and decide to separate employees. You need to have a policy in place. You also need to have a procedure on how you are going to separate these employees from what they're doing currently. Remember, sometimes it might lead to mental issues. Imagine all of a sudden you tell your employees that you no longer need them. What will happen? It will affect their emotions. And some of these people are breadwinners in their place of work. They are breadwinners maybe in their families or even in their community. And all of a sudden, you decide you are laying them off. Or some of these people took a loan from a bank and they bought a mortgage. And all of a sudden, you want to destroy their future. What will happen? They might even commit suicide. So sometimes you need to come up with a procedure of separation. You also need to give them some advice, prepare them in advance. And that is why during your retirement, you're normally given the terminal leave, maybe 6 months. Go leave for 6 months. Kwanza kujipanga, start preparing yourself psychologically. Kae nyumbani, uanze kuzoea. Terminal leave. It's a requirement by law. Right? Yes, you are still an employee, but they are preparing you for exit. That you have to be paid. I'm not sure anyway. Do they pay terminal leave? They're practicing HR. Do you pay people who are going on terminal leave?
Yes, they are paid.
Full salary?
Yes.
Yeah, umesikia. So hao watu wanalipwa. Lakini you are being prepared for the outside world. So that in the event you retire now, you already are comfortable. Kama umejipanga, hiyo ni shida yako. Mambo ikiumana, sasa tutaka kujua. Then hata nilikuwa naongelea policies, a comprehensive separation for your transition, smooth transition. Always ensure the smooth transition of your employees as they leave the organization. We also have what is called the exit interview. And this is very common. Normally, when you're leaving that organization, they give you a form that you are supposed to fill based on your level of satisfaction in that organization. Some people normally have a very bad attitude when they're leaving. They always say, never burn your bridges. You never know. You might want your current employer to consider you again. Because they always say that the grass is never greener on the other side. But you also need to try the other side for you to understand that the grass is not green. Don't be on your comfort zone. Some people are too comfortable in their current role, which is a very dangerous move. If you get an opportunity, leave as early as yesterday. So employees separation constitutes the final stage in the staffing process of an organization. At one point in your time or in your life, you'll be forced to leave that organization, either by design or by any other ways. So you'll be separated. An organization employee can leave the organization for any other reason which feels fit or seeking separation. So you can decide to leave. Nobody is holding you back in that organization. If you want to leave, you can just leave. However, separation is classified into two types. The first one is voluntary separation, and the second one is involuntary separation. Voluntary separation is where you feel as an individual that I'm going to leave at my will. So you decide to resign, maybe because you want to go and do some other activities or venture into something different from what you do. So you voluntarily decide to go. Maybe you've started your own farm after finishing CHRP and having 15 years experience. You decide, I want to start a consultancy in my area of expertise. And I know some of you will be doing that in the near future so that you become a consultant. You don't have to wake up every day. You can sit in the comfort of your house and train, do your consultancy, and dictate how much you'll be paid. So what are some of the reasons that might lead to voluntary separation? Number one is professional reasons. Maybe today decide you want to continue with your master's in America. So you go to a university in America, so you decide to leave your organization because you want to seek other opportunities somewhere else. Or it can be other professional reasons. Maybe you want to start your own farm, or maybe you want to venture into something totally different from what you do, and this will lead to separation. Then we also have other reasons, personal reasons that are not related to your profession. Maybe your family is relocating to another part of the world. Maybe you're going to Europe. So you decide that because of that reason, I'm going to follow my family to Europe, Australia, or any other part of the world. Even in India, you can decide. Or because of some personal reasons, maybe you're going to give birth. So you decide that I want to spend time with my family so that my child is going to get the best in terms of care. So you decide to leave because of personal reasons. Or any other thing that you feel, or marriage, you can decide to leave. Bwana wako amekuambia sasa wewe unang'ang'ana nini? Unaenda kufanya nini kwa kazi, si ndio? But don't accept. Sawa. Sikubali bwana. So you might decide because of personal reasons to leave that organization. The other one is involuntary separation. This is where you're forced to leave that organization because of some reasons that are beyond you. Some reasons that you cannot control. What are some of the reasons that might lead to involuntary separation? Number one is health problems. Maybe you have a disease that is really affecting you. It is even affecting your mental health. Maybe you have a disease of forgetting. Naitwangaje disease, dementia. Yeah, you have dementia, you forget. Or maybe you have an accident that paralyzes you. You can no longer be active. Then that forces you to leave employment involuntarily. You didn't plan for it. It is beyond you. You can decide to leave. Behavior problems that might affect you or that might lead to disciplinary action. And one of the things that I talked about is acting in an unethical manner. Maybe you don't want to follow the code of conduct. And the code of conduct is clearly saying you are not supposed to steal from your employer. But when you are leaving your organization, they realize that you have a laptop that does not belong to you. What happens? And you did not report in the morning when you came in. And then when they analyze, they realize that this is a laptop that is a company property that is stealing. So they force you to leave that organization because of your behavior. Sexual harassment. You keep on harassing ladies in your place of work because you feel that you are untouchable. But one lady decides to record you, and that is material evidence. You are forced to leave that organization involuntarily. And other reasons that might lead to separation in your organization. Another reason is organizational problems. This is where the organization is experiencing some financial issues that is affecting their performance, and they want to cut down on expenditure. And the only reason that they have is to cut down on the employees. This is a very common practice in most organizations. Therefore, they can decide to lay off their employees. Just a minute. And decide to lay off their employees because of that. Another reason that might lead to this is the issue of automation. Maybe they are shifting from analog and they need people who are very chap in what they do. They decide we only need one person to operate a computer, a machine. If you are 15 of you in an office, then they only need 2 people or 3. They decide to lay off the others. Another reason is restructuring. This is a very common term. Restructure. We want to restructure. Maybe they've realized that some positions are duplicating. Maybe you are a manager in training, and there's also another manager in capacity building. See, that is the same thing. So they decide we need to scrap training and leave capacity building. So that is another reason that might lead to that. Other reasons could be they want to rationalize their operation, maybe to unify their operations. So they decide that they are going to terminate some employees as a result of that. Or maybe because of market dynamics, your business is bought by another company. Remember the case of Quickmart and Tumaini? Remember Tumaini supermarket? So initially they started as partners, but later Tumaini was swallowed by Quickmart. So you'll no longer hear of Tumaini. Is it there? It's not there. So those employees who are in Tumaini, some of them were laid off because the new partner comes with conditions that I only need a few of your employees so that they can train the others. Then it brings issues at the end of the day. They always say a good dancer knows when to leave the stage. So that is the end of my presentation. If there is a question, you can ask that question. Let me start with Beatrice. Any question? Anastasia. Anastasia.
Thank you, Mwalimu. I was just asking
Yes.
about the can redundancy also be an involuntary separation?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is.
Okay.
If your position is declared redundant, it means that the organization does not want you. So it's either they decide to lay you off, or they decide to transfer you to maybe another department that they feel they want capacity. So it is another reason that might lead to separation, involuntary separation. Remember, involuntary, we are saying you don't have control over. So if they declare your department redundant, or you as an individual redundant, then you'll be forced to leave that organization, either you like it or not. Any other question?
Thank you. Thank
Helen?
you.
Welcome. Helen, you have a question? There are some people who are not talking in this class.
Thank you, Mwalimu. No question for me.
Okay. So if there's no question, next time we will be talking about directing. Our next topic will be directing. I'll share the notes so that you prepare as we meet next week, both physical and online. But for physical today, you are very few. I don't know why, but I know next week, many will come. So I rest my case. Have a good night. Let's meet next week, same time, same place.
Thank you, Mwalimu. Good night.
Night.